I can't believe it's been this long already, but it is the first anniversary of the Blue Water Running Podcast. 1 year, 40 episodes, and 3,500 downloads later, it's been an incredible privilege to get to know local athletes and hear amazing and inspiring stories from the Blue Water area and beyond. The top 2 episodes from the last year are episode number 15 with Matt Armelagos of Michigan Cross Country Speed Ratings, where I was able to hear firsthand from one of the state's foremost experts on statistics in cross country and track, followed by the transparent and brave story of Abigail VanderKoi in episode 20, where she shared her journey of recovery and continuing progress in fighting an eating disorder while striving to achieve success in athletics. The very first episode of the podcast aired on March 28th, 2024, and featured 2023 Armada graduate Camden Khon, who happens to be my oldest child. Camden runs cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track for Spring Arbor University, where he recently earned indoor NAIA All-American status by taking 4th in the mile in 4:10 and 3rd place in the Distance Medley Relay in a new school record of 9:52, in which he ran the 800-meter leg. I invited Camden back to the pod to reflect on the last year and his progress from a 10th grader in high school to a collegiate sophomore. He didn't start in the sport immediately winning or setting records and has put in years of hard work to see any success. You can still grow and improve each year, even if the results are not immediately evident, which is a realistic but encouraging message for those who strive and hope to do the same. Camden will give us some insight into what racing is like at the NAIA level, advice he'd give a current athlete, and how to keep a mindset that focuses on continual improvement versus overnight success. Welcome back to the podcast, Camden, and thanks for joining me.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Well, we're going to jump back to where you started as a high school runner, because I think your story and your progression might give some perspective to an athlete who maybe feels a little frustrated that they aren't seeing immediate results or success, and maybe shed a little light on it's not all like glory from the moment you start, and just to perhaps make someone feel a little more patient or a little more confident that there's more to come. So I'm going to look back at your PRs. I'm going to read some of them off to you from high school from each year, and then hopefully that'll highlight the steady climb that you've had, and also show that where you started is definitely different than where you are now as a runner and an athlete. So in your freshman cross-country season at Memphis High School, you ran 21 minutes for a 5K in your very first race. By the end of the year, you'd run a 17:54. Then as a sophomore, we moved to Armada, and then you enrolled in Armada High School. You ran a 16:53. Your junior year, 16:29, and you were regional champ. Then your senior year, a 15:46 PR. That was a school record. You were BWAC MVP, regional runner-up, and then 15th at MIS to earn All-State. So that's a pretty big improvement, 21 minutes to a 15:46. Now, let me go into your track times, okay? So you didn't run in 9th grade because of COVID. That was 2020, so there was no track. So your 800-meter PR in 10th grade was a 2:10. Then in 11th grade, it was a 2:03. Then 12th grade, a 1:56 and a school record. 1600 PR, 10th grade, 4:51. 11th grade, 4:32. 12th grade, 4:16 school record, 4th at the state meet to earn all-state status. 3,200, 10th grade, 10:09. 11th grade, 9:44. 12th grade, 9:31, school record. You didn't really run it a lot your senior year, so that was a few runs here and there throughout the season. And then you didn't focus on the 400 either, but you went from a 56 to a 53, and then your 4x4 meter relay ran a 3:27 for a school record, and you split under 53 at some point there. So my point in all this data, other than being your mom and bragging on you a little bit, is success is often years in the making, and it can be very difficult and discouraging to try to be patient and keep the big picture in mind. there can be a lot of setbacks, and you really have to put in continual, consistent work to see results, as I think those years of progress show. So my question after going through all of those factors and that data is, what are the main factors or combination of elements that you attribute this steady growth to? Maybe that also continues as you improve in college, when you look back on the last 6 years.
Well, I would say one of the most obvious things, and it's not really that crazy, but is just I was growing a lot, and I was I guess maturing, not only in running, but just I had a lot of growth spurts in there, and so that kind of slowed me down at points, and then it also sped me up once I kind of caught up to everyone else. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, I feel like running is just a sport where it builds like from for years. So like you said, my first 5K was 21 minutes, but I also had never trained a day in my life. I just kind of showed up on the first day. And so I think a combination of just my body getting used to running and starting to put in like more miles and better workouts um, definitely helped a lot. But yeah, I would say anyone that doesn't really see progress right away is that I feel like running is a sport where you're not going to see progress all the time, and you might not be happy with how you perform, but if you keep working at it and work hard, but also be smart and not overdo it, I think that you'll see progress. And so I think that I had a really good coach in high school, and I do in college as well, but he kind of just had the perfect medium where I didn't do too many miles, but I didn't do too little, and good workouts, and kind of told me how to take care of my body, I guess. So yeah.
Well, looking back at your freshman year, you were 5'6".
Yeah.
And now you're 6'3". So a pretty big size difference. I've talked a lot about female runners and how going through puberty can sometimes cause some runners, not all, but some, to see setbacks because their body's adjusting to a new weight or a new body composition. And, when you're a younger girl, you're really just skin and bones, and that changes as you grow and mature. For boys, it kind of works the opposite in most cases. They get more muscle mass, they have more testosterone, they get stronger. And I think for you, that definitely played a role. But you also had, like you said, no injuries. You had very consistent increase in mileage. And then your coach didn't overtrain you. And his workouts were all focused on pace and where you were at currently, instead of forcing you to be somewhere you weren't ready for yet. And then I do want to mention to athletes that also do a winter sport that isn't indoor track, that's great cross training as well. You played basketball, and I feel like that speed and that agility really helped you also be a little more agile when it came to faster events. So just my perspective.
I would definitely say that was the biggest factor on why my improvement jumped so much my senior year. Was I just I grew a lot, and I kind of got just stronger, and I think that was like my last spurt, I guess. And so I think I saw a lot of improvement there because of that. I was maturing a lot. So I definitely think that's a nice thing for guys, is that it makes us faster, but obviously in a lot of girls' cases, it's not the same. So, yeah.
Well, and it's not true for all girls. I mean, some have very consistent, steady progression, but I think girls listening also need to give themselves a little more grace, because it's not usually how biology works. So just be patient. It just takes time. I will add in there for all of our podcast listeners that you didn't even want to go to cross-country practice your freshman year.
Yeah, you forced me.
Yep. I said, you are going to regret this, and you have a gift, and I made you get in the car and go to practice.
Well, I definitely didn't think I had a gift after that first race. That was terrible.
Well, that's a perfect example of why you want to prepare before you race. But lessons learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, people always told you when you were a middle schooler, you started doing track in seventh grade, that you were a 2 miler. You were a distance runner. That's what you were good at, and that's what you had the most aptitude in. And you kind of got pigeonholed a little bit into that event, even when you expressed interest in doing other things, like, hey, I'd like to run the mile, or I'd like to do the 800. And you thought, hey, I could do well in that. There were definitely doubters, including sometimes your coaches and even your dad and I. So talk about what changed for you in your racing aptitude and style. Because when you were able to break out of that mold and show you had a different skill set than what people expected, you actually ended up doing very well in some shorter distances.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what happened with that because my whole life running until my senior year track season, I had always done like, 5K cross country and 2 mile in track was like my event. I was like the only thing I thought I could ever qualify in. Um, and I mean, to be fair, like the times were showing that. I mean, I couldn't run a fast 400, 800, or even mile. And just one meet, the first meet my senior year, I just went out and tried a shorter event, and I just was shocked. Um, and that was definitely a blessing to kind of, I guess, try something new and not be stuck in the same event my whole
Yeah.
career. Because I figured because that was like right around the time I committed to running college, and I just thought, well, I guess in college I'll just do the 5K, 10K all the time because I don't really have another option. So, um, but yeah, I mean, once again, that probably goes back to just a lot of the growing and stuff. But I was kind of able to break out of that mold and ran a good 800 and mile, and so I was super happy about that. And I definitely am still happy to this day because if my coach asked me if I would rather do an 800 or a 5K, I would definitely rather do an 800. I think the longer it gets, the more mentally tough it is. So
That's true. Well, you should tell the story of your first 1600 at the Lapeer meet, because I think it's a pretty interesting perspective against Michael Haggerty. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was just pacing his teammate. I mean, he's super fast. He runs for state now. But I I started the race and I was shooting for like 430, 435 or something, and then um I just kind of stuck on him because I felt really good. And I don't think he knew I was behind him. And then at the end I kind of just outleaned him, and I don't think he was too happy because he was, tempo in it or whatever, but it was kind of funny to outlean him like that, but I don't think he was too happy about that.
Well, I think that was the first time people that had watched you run for a while realized you actually had a kick, because that was kind of your downfall. In cross country, you had to get a big enough lead. So if a faster miler, came on the last 800 or so, you would have enough distance to outlast them. Um,
Yeah.
and then in track, in the 2 mile, if somebody had a kick, you usually couldn't match it. But you're like, oh, I guess maybe he can sprint at the end. So yeah,
Mhm.
it was a fun race to watch. He did go on to win the state meet, I think.
Yeah. Oh, he
Yeah.
got outleaned, I think. I think he
Oh
got,
no, he did. Okay.
yeah, but he's really fast.
Yeah, yeah, he was
He's
a,
doing
a
really
good,
well at MSU, so
yeah, good runner. But I think too, something that's important to mention there is you never talked yourself out of anything. You would always say, I'm going to see what happens, or I'm going to just hang on it. And I think a lot of people, they just automatically assume they can't do it. And then they just talk themselves out of ever trying. And I don't know, like you got to take risks. It's okay to see what might happen.
yeah, I agree. I think you never know what could happen when you're running. I mean, you could have a breakout race at any moment. So some races I think I can go for it. I just completely die and don't do well, but others I'll do really well. So I guess you kind of just have to go for it. You,
Hmm.
you don't want to regret anything. So
Yeah, and that doesn't mean be dumb.
Yeah.
Like obviously, you can have a smarter strategy, but sometimes you just have to take a risk. Now, just because you saw a pretty consistent improvement and had a good senior year, it doesn't mean there weren't struggles or disappointments. So, your senior year in the Open 800, after focusing more on that event and running it and doing well, um, things did not go the way that you had hoped at the regional race. So, walk us back to that and then talk to us about how you had to overcome that and that goal that wasn't realized and then move forward.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most tough moments ever in my like running career, just because um I really loved the 800. Is probably my favorite event, still is my favorite event, but I yeah, I came in like knowing that my time should get me to states and that I should be fine, and if even if I didn't, I could get second place. Um but then I already ran the mile that day, and the whole day it was just downpouring, freezing rain. And so we got to the line, and the fat system wasn't working because it was pouring. So we stood there for 10 minutes, it was all tight. My muscles were all cramped up. And so by the time the race actually started, I was just, not in it, not mentally in it the way I should have been. And I missed qualifying AQ by like, I don't know, point one or something. And I got third by point one too. So it was just like, it was a real big bummer for me. I mean, I definitely I was angry about that for a long time, but at the end of the day, I realized that after that, it might have even been better that I didn't make it because I was able to just focus on the mile, and so that made the mile a lot better. But yeah, that was probably one of the most, if not the most devastating moments, was not making it in the 800. So
Yep. Well, everyone has to have a game plan for if things don't go well because it doesn't always turn out the way you want. So, mentally preparing yourself for disappointment is just as important as mentally preparing yourself for success, I think. Well, what do you do differently now as a collegiate athlete than you did as a high school athlete? So you can talk about anything you like, your nutrition, your shoes, warm up routine, recovery, anything that would go with, just your daily approach to staying healthy and doing your best.
yeah, so for that question, I would say literally everything. Like I did nothing in high school to better my running. I didn't really, I guess, care that much. I kind of really like basketball a lot, but I uh I would say um I ate terrible in high school and even a little bit into college. And now I try to focus on my diet a lot more. I didn't really care about my sleep, I'd get 7 hours and call it good. And now I'm really focused on my sleep. I try and get at least 8.5 to 9 hours consistent sleep. In high school, I didn't run a lot of miles, so when I got to college, my mileage upped quite a bit. And I also um, got new shoes a lot more because in high school I would just wear the same shoes all year long, um, which I could get away with because I was only running like 30 miles a week. But now I'm really like particular about once my shoes hit this amount of mileage, I want to prevent injury, so I get new ones. Um, and then also workouts, hard workouts twice a week. I really like to push myself in those because in high school I kind of just do tempos here and there and not really push myself that hard. And I feel like workouts are like the key to being faster. And my coach does a really good job of giving us like good hard workouts. And so um, I would say that's a big part. And then also, one of the biggest things too was learning how to race like to the well. Like in high school, I feel like I would race, and yeah, I would be very tired, but I wouldn't be like all out. And I feel like in college, I learned to hit, I guess, like another gear where I'm like completely toast after a race. And I feel like that's something that I kind of had to figure out when I came to college, is how to like do that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I did not do in high school that being with my teammates kind of like pushed me a little bit to like start doing some of these things right. But yeah, I would say almost everything has changed since I've been in high school. Pretty much other than school, it's one of the things I put most of my time into. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure one of the things you also had to learn to do differently, or a different strategy, I suppose, would be racing strategy.
Mm.
So at the national meet for the 800 in the DMR, that was your leg, and then the mile, you have to race a prelim for both. And you had to be in the top 10 to make it into the final for the mile. And then was it top 8 or 10 in the DMR?
I think it was
I think
10.
it was 10 as well. So you have to do the prelim to make it in, which means you can't, dog it. And
Mhm.
then you have to race your best again in 2 finals. So that's 4 races at high level in the course of 3 days. And then in the finals, you have to finish in the top 8 places to be All-American. So talk about how the qualifying rounds of college competition require you to prepare, race, strategize, and recover differently for each day than in high school, where you would have one meet, run a couple times, and be done.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes into another thing I didn't do in high school is recovery. I would run and just like do nothing for my body. And once again, I could kind of get away with that because I wasn't doing a whole lot. But now running like that was the first time I've ever done intensity at that like amount, doing 4 races in 3 days. That was pretty hard on my body, but um my coaches kind of showed me how to recover correctly. And so now I roll out and I do ice baths. But at the same time, that can only go so far when you're doing that much. And so um, it's kind of something that I feel like as you as you do more years in college running, you can get better at. But for me, I feel like I'm still kind of new to it. And so it was pretty hard on my body. But yeah, there's definitely some strategy that goes into that because it's like you don't want to race the prelim all out because you still have the final. But at the same time, like you don't want to just jog the prelim and then not make the final. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. It's a lot of like sit and kick, but at the end of the day, I do kind of like it because the prelim kind of weeds some people out, makes the final more competitive. So yeah, but that's definitely something that I have to get better at because it's hard racing that intensely that many times close together. So
Well, and something that other teams had as an advantage was they could put 4 other guys in a prelim who didn't race the final. So they would put their fastest guys in the final, so they'd be more rested.
mm-hmm.
Whereas you were running the same 4 each time.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a difference too.
Yeah.
Something that I noticed about the meet, there were quite a few disqualifications this year. One of your own teammates made it to the 400-meter final, which means had she finished the race, she would have been All-American because only 8 make it in. And she was unfortunately disqualified. And so do you feel that the officials were more strict this year with disqualifications, or were there just some new rules that they implemented, or how did that all happen?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely more strict this year, but to be fair, I agree with them because I'd rather them be strict than be lenient and let things go that are clearly against the rules. Um, but this year, they I think they did incorporate a new rule. It's like you can only take one step on the inside of the rail consecutively, whereas it used to be you could take, I think the third was when you got disqualified, so you could take 2. So they did make the rules a little harder, but I mean I agree with it honestly. Even if you step on the line and not even in the rail more than once, you're DQ'd if they see it. So I mean it's definitely nerve-wracking for me because I stepped in the rail like clearly in the rail for one step and I was like I had to get out of there quicker because the official was right there. So it's definitely I don't know, like they crack down on it really hard, but at the end of the day, I do think it's valid because um, you wouldn't want people taking 4 steps inside and the officials just being like, oh, whatever. So, and people also get a right to they get to protest it and they can make the final if the official was wrong and they can go back and look. So, I mean, I agree with what they're doing. So,
We'll talk about your teammate Dean Reynolds in the Open 800.
oh, yeah, he was just getting like shoved like over and over again by this one guy in his heat. And it cost him the final. He barely missed the final, and so they went back and protested it, and they ended up being like, yeah, you're right. You can go into the final, and so there was a 9-person final instead of 8. They could have paid extra to have the guy DQ'd, because you have to pay for a protest and pay for a DQ, but I don't think they were as worried about that. But the guy could have easily gotten DQ'd. I mean, he was illegally pushing him, so
Yeah, I was surprised, even if you didn't file a protest for that specific reason. I was surprised that even when they looked back and said, okay, Dean's going to move on to the final, they didn't disqualify him on their own because he was clearly impeding him passing. I mean, he went to pass and he pushed him, and then he
yeah,
did it again. It was blatant. It wasn't like, oops, I kind of bumped into you as you went around me.
yeah.
So I found that interesting that was
Mhm.
not something the officials chose to do on their own, but I guess you never know.
Yeah.
Well, the times in the NAIA, just to qualify for the national meet, are quite often faster than what it took when I ran to even be on the podium as an All-American. So in other words, you could run a podium qualifying time 25 years ago, and then today that would not even be fast enough to qualify you to get to the national meet. So do you think the differences in the level of the NAIA has been affected at all? I know the sport has, changed, become more technologically advanced in shoes and training and all those things across the board. But do you think in the NAIA competition is already trickling down with the NCAA roster limits and the changes to NIL deals? And do you think that will continue to affect or change the face of the NAIA?
Yeah, I mean, the D1 roster limits going into effect next year is huge because, they can only have 10 guys on the cross team and a very limited number on the track team as well. And so if you want to go D1, you're going to have to be really, really fast. And so a lot of those guys, I don't think D2 has those roster limits. So a lot of those guys will trickle into D2, and then a lot of those D2 guys will trickle into us. But I mean, also the NAIA has been getting a lot of international runners lately. So they're really fast, but it's harder to get in D1 when you're an international because I believe they have to take like harder tests, like you have to be able to speak a certain amount of English or whatever. And so a lot of those international people are competing in the NAIA, and they're really fast. And so I think if we continue to get international like runners, the NAIA will be more and more competitive. But yeah, and that combined with the roster limits and just people having better training than they used to, and new technology like new shoes and stuff like that, I think the NAI is going to be really fast. I mean, the standards are really fast this year, and so you have to be quick to make the national meet. And I honestly I agree with that, and I like it because the harder they make the standards, people will rise to the standards and they'll hit them. So I think it just makes it more competitive, and it makes it more special if it's harder to get there because fewer
Mm-hmm.
people will make it. So.
Well, you had a big PR in the mile this year. You ran a 4:09. It was the first time you broke 4:10. Is breaking 4 minutes in the mile something that you want to achieve before your career is done? Is that on your radar?
Yes, actually, I told my coach that a couple weeks ago. But I said before I graduate, so probably my senior year, my goal is to go sub 4, and I might get it, I might not. I mean, sub 4 it's a really hard goal to get. I mean, it's fast, especially since the mile is only run indoor, so I have to do it on a 200 or if I'm lucky, a 300-meter track. So yeah, it's definitely on my radar. I want to break 4 and I want to break 150. But I think breaking 4 is probably my biggest goal, but also the hardest. So yeah, but I think I can get it. I just have to continue to work hard and listen to my body. So
And when you say break 150, you're talking of the 800 meters. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Are there any other running goals you have that you're putting out there for the future? Cross country, track, either?
Yeah, I want to break 14 in the 5K as well. Our school record's 13:52, and so I think that would be a great goal. My coach said he thinks I can get it. But that's going to be tough as well. I mean, 13:52 is really quick, and so I mean, I had a pretty decent 5K last year, so I'm hoping that I can run another good one this year. But yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Is that on the track? You're talking 5K?
Yeah, outdoor track.
Yeah.
I don't like doing 5K indoor because it's
No,
a
that's
million
hard.
laps.
Yeah. Um, does Nathan Martin hold that record?
Yeah, he
That's
does.
what I was guessing. So, if you don't know who Nathan Martin is, he is a Spring Arbor graduate who is now a professional runner, running, just got signed with ASICS, I think.
Yeah.
He's been grinding for a long time on his own, working a side job, still training, and he is the fastest American-born Black man in the marathon. So, not an international runner, but American born here. Very cool. Props to him because he has just been working for like a decade to achieve these things. So it's great to see him with a team that's, finally giving him the credit that is due for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, now that you are almost finished with your second year of college, because when I talked to you on the very first podcast, you were almost done with your freshman year, your first year of college. What advice or insight would you give to a freshman that's going to be coming in the fall for their first year of collegiate competition?
That's a good question. I would say just start easy. Like don't rush yourself into competing super hard at the collegiate level because you will get burnt out as a freshman. Um, I would say just take it easy and kind of just ease your way into the miles and into the really hard workouts because for most people it's a hard adjustment coming from high school. But yeah, I would say just and enjoy it because all my teammates they say like the seniors on my team they're like it went by so quick and so um, even though you feel like you have so much time left, you only race 5 meets a season, and so um, I guess just enjoy every single meet because it goes by really quick. So
It does. It does. Well, how about advice for a high school athlete who is maybe struggling with a performance plateau? Maybe they're not seeing results they want, or they're not sure if they even want to keep putting in the time and effort to train. They love running, they love competing, but they're feeling a bit discouraged. What would you say to one of them?
I would say first off, everybody has a plateau at some point. You can't PR every single race or every single year. It's pretty hard to do. And also, if you're struggling that much to PR, I would kind of take a step back. If you're having trouble with the success and kind of look at like, is there something other than your training that might help you to improve? Like, are you, I guess, eating right? And I'm guilty of this. I don't eat great still, but are you eating right? Are you sleeping enough? Are you like recovering? Are you giving your body the rest it needs? Because you can't always just push your body to the well and not give it what it needs. And so I would just say take a step back and kind of look at what your body needs and also, give yourself a break because you're not always gonna run some crazy PR. You might just kind of plateau a little bit at times, and that's okay. I think every runner has that. So
Yeah, it's realistic. You're human.
yeah.
At least most of us are. There's a few people I'm not sure if they are, but well, Camden, it has been great to talk to you once again. Exactly a year from the very first time we started the pod with episode number 1. So we'll see what happens in the next year. And as always, we're rooting for you. We're your
Yeah.
biggest fans,
Mhm.
and you're, looking ahead to the next and what might come. And hopefully it will all be the things that you've talked about as the goals you have and want to achieve. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Mommy.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Words truly cannot express how thankful and blessed I am to have been able to do this for the last year. please share an episode to help spread the word about Blue Water Running's mission, which is to feature and celebrate the achievements of high school and collegiate cross-country and track and field athletes from the Blue Water area of Michigan. You can follow Blue Water Running on Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, along with meet and athlete reports and photos on the website at bluewaterrunning.org. Coverage of Blue Water Running is sponsored in part by Elite Feet of Port Huron. If you need running shoes, spikes, or apparel, they have a friendly and knowledgeable staff to help you find just what you need, and they're big fans of running too. They are located at 327 Huron Ave in downtown Port Huron. Verlindy Insurance, located in Richmond, Michigan, is a new supporter of coverage on Blue Water Running. Training as an athlete teaches you resilience and preparation. Apply those lessons to your life with their insurance plans. Be ready for anything with them by your side. I have my home, auto, and umbrella insurance policies with Verlindy and can tell you from personal experience that their rates and customer service are second to none. You can visit verlindyinsurance.com or email Noah at verlindyinsurance.com. That's VERLINDE insurance.com for more information. If you are interested in sponsoring coverage or partnering with Blue Water Running as an advertiser to reach and support our local athletes, please reach out via our website or social media channels.